Hey, buddy.
Hey there, Mike. Nice to meet you. I'm Leo.
Nice to meet you, Leo. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so glad Bostin invited you.
Yeah, man. I'm excited that we could go in depth about health and just kind of spread knowledge and help people kind of understand that there's the many variables of the sport, of this beautiful sport, and nothing's more important than staying alive. So.
Of course, exactly. Yeah. And this is really what our podcast is sort of about. I don't know if you've seen my channel before, but I used to be an arm wrestler, not competitive like you, of course, but I was, weightlifting, taking steroids and stuff like that, took high protein for many years. And so I've tried to make my life more healthy. And so this channel is sort of about that. And our angle is sort of look at ex-weightlifters and stuff like that. And so Bostin, of course, recently had his kidney issues. So we have this podcast. We try to get on people that have similar issues, that tell the truth like you. And I was just had a chance to get through 75% of your interview on Nick Trigili's channel. It was fantastic. Cool. I was just trying to, because I only knew about you since the morning. So I was trying to update myself, but it was so fantastic. I love the way you speak with honesty and with humility. And, because people don't realize that when somebody like yourself talks about their health issues, it impacts their career, their business, and all that kind of stuff. So you do it out of to help others.
Yeah, and that's really the only reason that I kind of came about with saying all this is because it's kind of like I'm giving a lending hand, a helping hand to people who might be oblivious. And I feel like this is something that is overshadowed. It's always like, how did this person look? And it's very tragic because a lot of the time someone could look so good and then die suddenly or get diagnosed. And it's like, people don't see that just because you look great on the exterior, it doesn't mean the interior is aligning with that. Yeah. So, I mean, you look at great bodybuilders like Bostin, like Dallas, sorry. And it's unfortunate that, things like that of that nature had to happen because it was possibly preventable.
Yeah. And it's interesting to contrast. We'll talk about it more about so can you tell us, oh, by the way, hi, Bostin. I haven't seen you for a while.
Up?
How you doing?
Oh, what's up, man? What up?
So, Mike, can you tell us maybe we should start at the beginning. Where does the beginning start for you? I mean, actually we also have another thing on my channel. I'm an ex-addict. I got sober. I'm not fully sober, but I'm quite sober, and a lot of the things we talk about on the channel is addiction, rehabilitating yourself from drugs and stuff like that. I noticed in the beginning of your interview, you mentioned that you had a history with addiction. I wanted to start there because that's interesting to me.
So growing up, I was a mess, man. I come from kind of like a very dysfunctional household. There were a lot of different narratives going on. And one of the narratives was, me not really feeling like I had a place in my house and that, there was so much turmoil. The only way I could escape it for me was, starting to do drugs. And I started that when I was like 7 or 8 years old, grade 7 or 8. So I was about 11 or 12 years old. And then, I got into cocaine probably when I was grade 9 or 10. It was nothing really crazy heavy, though, in regards to that. It was more like I just couldn't be sober, man, whether I was drinking or doing mushrooms or whatever. I didn't really have an addiction to a certain drug. It was just I had an addiction of not being present because I couldn't deal with, my circumstances. You kind of become a product of your environment, right? So from that, I just kind of, fell into training and I was just trying to stay out of trouble and stay out of getting arrested and escaping that lifestyle. And I came across the gym and it was great because it also gave me a chance to get away from the crowd that was getting me kind of making me more vulnerable when I was trying to escape that. So they'd say, come out. And I'd say, I can't, I'm training. What are you doing after? I got to cook. What are you doing in the morning? Man, I got to get my meals in. And it was just a really good escape for me. And I literally got addicted to the gym. Like it's a full on addiction for the gym.
Did it affect your insecurities? Like you didn't feel like you needed to be not present and not sober and stuff like that once you started investing in yourself, seeing results and things like that?
I felt like, I was getting more positive attention and that I just felt so fucking good being able to get a pump and being able to feel like I was worthy, because I feel like when you're young and you're on drugs and you don't have a place, like you feel like you don't really belong. And when I was training, I started feeling like, I am good enough, I am worthy, and I started building confidence. And through that, I'm like, you know what, if I could just help people in any way possible, then I want them to prevent them going down the same road I did. Even if it's not in the same circumstance, there's a lot of different people in different avenues that end up leading down that road of addiction or going into abusive relationships or anything that's just not healthy and positive. So I kind of, that's what led me into social work, man. I love helping people, and I ended up working with disabled kids. I'm from Toronto. Yeah. So I worked for the Toronto Catholic District School Board. Before I turned pro, I did it for about 4 or 5 years. I was working with mentally disabled children.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. And I did that, man. And honestly, like just being able to give back to people who can't help you back is such a rewarding feeling. And it puts things in hindsight. Like a lot of the small dramas and stuff going on in day-to-day life is like, we take all of it for granted because there are people out there and families and parents that don't get to experience things that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis.
You mentioned some interesting things. One of the things is, I think, like service, your work was had in it a clear commitment to service of society. I feel like all of us are born to serve in some way. And when we don't serve others, we just serve ourselves. It can lead to that. And the other thing is that, I had an interesting consultation a couple of days ago from a client who basically he felt so insecure his whole childhood that he had to be on benzos, Xanax, stuff like that, until he picked up weightlifting. When he picked up weightlifting, the combination of developing, a stature, as well as seeing the work that you put, there's evidence in the mirror that you're working, that you're worthy because you're working on yourself.
Yes.
You can see that. Yeah. Yes. I think all of us in some way, you have a purpose also, and you see clear progress, which is such an important part, I think, in like happiness and humanity. You have to be able to see that you're going somewhere in life. We get really restless if we're not going somewhere.
Yes. There's a correlating evidence, especially for men, that men who wake up with intent in the morning and have like a direction feel like they have more purpose and that they belong. A lot of the times, people come across, unfortunately, having suicidal thoughts or committing suicide is mainly because they don't belong, or they're not understood, or they just can't handle the surroundings. So small things like having a schedule and having a purpose, especially for a man, I can't speak on behalf of a woman, but for a man to wake up with no purpose is probably the worst thing for us.
Very true. Very true. I think in general, for having a purpose, we touched on some important things: service, purpose, all this.
Absolutely.
So for me personally, I was like bullied when I was younger and I was small. So I started weightlifting, powerlifting to get stronger so I could fight. I never thought that this investment I put in myself, which I wasn't taking steroids originally, but I was eating a lot of protein, 300 grams of protein every day for 10 years, 15 years. I never realized this could be unhealthy. We thought that I grew up thinking it was healthy. There was no way this could potentially be unhealthy.
Especially because of like, you feel good, you look good. So you're like, I'm great, Exactly.
But then as we start to get, I think Rich Piana was one of the big things, Dallas Rich.
Yes.
Before then, there was a Deadpool. I don't know if you ever seen it online. There was on Get Big. Boston, you ever seen that? The Deadpool?
No.
There was like a Deadpool where people used to call out bodybuilders they think would die. And then there was an article actually about the dead bodies in bodybuilding. That was a really famous article, which was shocking. You could see but we never really realized it, I feel, until YouTube began and we could see people die actively around us. How did your health start to become compromised? I mean, I know the story involves insulin in your case, or you feel.
Yeah, so so just to give people a quick little background, like I started competing when I was 21. My first 2 shows, I was completely natural. And I realized I might have been natural, but my competitors weren't. So I'm like, I'm either not going to waste my time and focus on, maybe taking up a business or focusing on school, or I'm going to go all in with this bodybuilding thing. And I said, fuck it. I got one life. I love training and I want to be a bodybuilder. So I started taking gear when I was about 21, but very small doses. I was doing 500 milligram test sip, 300 EQ with 40 milligrams of D-ball, very small in the beginning. And then, it did gradually increase, but the thing that really stood out for me was, especially when I was with Milos and I was doing up to 65 IUs of insulin a day. And it's funny because I could only afford doing 6 IUs of GH because I'm doing pharmacy. He wanted me doing 12 to 15 IUs. So I probably wouldn't be here today if I was fucking doing double the dose. Yeah.
I didn't catch that. Oh, he does.
Yeah.
15. Boston, you know that?
Actually, Mike, I've actually seen one of his programs, and at the bottom it said as much growth hormone as you can afford.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
It's odd how certain coaches, I'm sure he's not the only one, but they associate higher dose with more results.
Yes.
You know, and it's like, even if that is the case by some stretch of an imagination, what about the health? What about your heart? What about your organs? What about all these other things? Like, and a lot of the times these coaches don't even ask for blood work. So it's like, I could be giving someone, you know, hard steroids, like, you know, trends and all the heavy orals and things like that. And they could have a shit liver. Like, I don't even really know because they're not doing a due diligence. And
there's so many layers of this. We have to break it down. There's such an interesting subject, but okay, first of all, I want to point out something to the audience. So I know a little bit of your story. So something happened to you eventually. You had a little heart problems. When you first came out about it, you didn't blame Milos in any way. I know about that.
I know. If you actually watch the original video,
I just want the audience to know he's not bad-mouthing Milos. What happened is actually, oddly, Milos contacted you privately, and I saw the exchange. It was like a little bit of a rude exchange, and only then afterwards you mentioned Milos. So we're not trying to badmouth Milos, but it doesn't matter who it is. Actually, it does matter a little bit because he's known for the insulin thing, so it's a little bit relevant.
Yeah, I mean, when you promote yourself, you know, being like the king of insulin or whatever, there's going to be residual effects that come along with that, and health is one of them. Especially when you're, it's not. This is the thing, guys, and for people watching, it's not just insulin. It's not just the gear. It's not just the GH. It's everything that works together. Because if I just took insulin without GH or without gear, maybe I'd be fine. I mean, you can never really justify 65 IUs of insulin. It's fucking madness. But seeing as there's a cycle involved with that, and if I was taking 15 IUs of GH, I mean, I wouldn't blame my heart for fucking exploding. It would have been my own fault. And again, it is my fault still because he didn't put a gun to my head. But you'd like to think at a level when you're trying to push the limits and become the best pro that you could be, you could trust and people that who have done this process before with other pros.
Okay.
So
give our audience a top-down perspective of what happened. So basically, Milos took you, I think, to 2 shows, right? And then
I did 3 with Milos. I was with him for 2018. For basically, I started after I had a guest pose in Toronto after the Tampa Pro at the end of 2017. It was like end of the summer, I think August. So I started with him at that show, and then I never stopped insulin for a day. Since, I mean, okay, off days I didn't do insulin, but like every training day I was doing insulin with Milos. She was very pro insulin, which again, I'm not saying that insulin is not a great drug, but it is dose dependent. Like there's a difference between use and abuse. And I know
we'll discuss that for sure. I really want to get into that with you, like your thoughts on insulin, GH, how it affects the health, and the details of your heart condition. But first, we want to know, like, so he took you to 3 shows, and then after that, you actually went to one of the greatest coaches, Patrick, for a short while as well.
Great.
Yeah. And then it is after that, when you first started with Patrick, that you got the warning sign. Something happened to you one day when you took, which is an interesting experience. Did you just start overheating that day? Can you tell us about that briefly?
Okay, so I could take you through briefly. So I finished 2018 with Milos. And then I had shoulder surgery in 2019. And then I was waiting to recover from that to start up with Patrick. And then and then we started with Patrick. I think it was like a summer 2019. So a year later after I recovered from my shoulder surgery, we started very light. Like, it's funny coming from Milos to Patrick. Milos was like more. And Patrick was like, you do not need to do more than 6 IUs of insulin post-training. And I was like, thank God, because you know, at the time, I didn't even know I had my heart issue. I felt sluggish, but again, I thought that was just part of the territory of being heavy.
By the way, were you holding water throughout this time? Sorry to interrupt you. Were you starting to hold water?
I was holding water, but again, like I was not thinking heart issue. Like it wasn't on the, you know, I'm a bodybuilder, man. I'm fucking invincible. Like I'm thinking like I think I'm being responsible. And I just hated, at the end of working with Milos, I fucking hated insulin because it just made me hold water. My stomach grew substantially. From working with throughout the shows, and especially loading on 180 IUs of insulin for my, you know, for loading up for a show. And I just had enough of it. I'm like, fuck this insulin. It's just screwing up my look. I look like shit and I'm not growing. Like
and you were naturally known for your cuts originally. You just wanted to be full initially and it took you off.
Which went out the window. But So yeah, I started with Patrick, and then Patrick he wanted me trying a GHRP2 and another peptide, which I don't remember, but it was a GHRP2. I took it, and I was in my basement, and I started eating, and then all of a sudden, within 10 minutes, like my heart was so tight, and I was like breathing like, and I couldn't breathe, and I knew something was wrong because I started going dizzy. And I didn't know what it was. I thought, maybe like GHRP6, it sometimes makes your blood sugar drop. So that's the only thing I could relate to of my knowledge. So I said, you know what? I'm going to drink juice. I drank juice, didn't do anything. Then I started overheating and I got like red, like my whole body was red. And so I went outside and it was February and I'm in Toronto, so it's fucking freezing. And I ran outside butt naked to try to bring down my temperature because I was boiling. So I was outside butt naked, feeding the snow and everything. And I was still overheating. So I'm like, okay, I got to try to get this out of me. I tried making myself puke. I couldn't. And then,
adrenaline, that's your body trying to force the heart to work. That's your adrenaline shooting in, huh?
And then I started sweating. And I remember I came downstairs and I fainted and I smacked my head off the side of the wall. And luckily I sent one of my friends at the time a picture of what I looked like. And I said, dude, something's wrong. Like, I don't know what it is. I couldn't say my heart. I didn't know what it was. But luckily, when I woke up out of me fainting, the ambulance came in and they fucking, pretty much kicked the door down upstairs to get to the basement. And when they came down, they checked me out and they said, obviously, it's up to you if you want to go to the hospital. But if it is some kind of allergic reaction and it's still in your system, it could kick in again when you're sleeping and you'll be dead. So I said, okay, fuck it. I'm going to the hospital. And then when I went to the hospital, they originally checked my heart. It's one of the first things they do. And they noticed that my heart enzymes were increased. So they thought I originally had a heart attack. So they administered me and I was there overnight. And they realized that it wasn't a heart attack, but that there was something wrong with my heart, but they didn't know what. So they sent me to see a cardiologist. And then when I went to see the cardiologist, first I did the stress test on the treadmill. That's the first thing they usually do. I did the stress test and he's like, wow, it took a long time to get your heart rate up. And I'm here at like fucking 275, 280, and still it's hard to get my heart rate up. Then he's like, and I'm like, why am I here? This is a waste of time. I probably had some fucking stupid reaction. He did the ECG, and which is why I'm telling you guys out there, you cannot rely on just an ECG. Because I
know the ECG is bullshit. Yeah, you can't rely on it.
Didn't detect it. So then I went for the echocardiogram and he's like, Mr. Cipriani, you need to step in my office. And he was like dead serious. What the fuck is going on? So I go in the office. He's like, your heart is very, very, very weak. And I'm like, you just said my heart was good. I was just on the treadmill. He goes, oh, luckily for you, you actually are still alive and you're in like decent physical shape because of your heart. So when you're in the gym, like when you're training and it's forcing your heart to pump more. And when you have a failing heart, the worst thing I could have done is stayed home and not be active. So me training is like, it's pushing my heart to be more active. And because of that, that's what masked my problems. Cause he said, if you're at home more and you didn't train for 3 hours a day, this would have been a lot more blunt to you. That's why it was masked. But he said, truth of the matter is if you waited 3 more months and you were still taking steroids, again, just so everyone knows, doctors aren't going to say it was Tren, it was insulin, it was GH. Don't know. It's all painted with one brush, steroid. So he said, if you waited 3-4 months, you could have had either heart failure or you'd be on a pacemaker the rest of your life. So
did he then take you to an fMRI and do a dye and you sat for 4 hours in the machine, or did you not do it?
What's
So there's a couple, like a few heart tests. They can do the echocardiogram and the stress test, and then they can do and the EKG is a stress test. Then they can do a dye and put you in an fMRI where they see how your blood flows exactly, and they see your heart in much more detail than they can see with the other tests. Or there's also a CT scan, but that's damaging to the heart. So they usually do an fMRI to see the heart in detail. Did they do one yet for you?
No, it's funny because when he did the ecto, he pulled it up. It's basically like, I'm not sure if you've ever had one done, but maybe it's different,
many times.
City to city or country to country. But when I saw it here, it's basically an ultrasound of the heart, and it gives an exact diagram of the heart, and you can see the beating. So
true,
he said, Mike, the guy who came in before you, he has a normal heart, and he was showing me the contraction. Right. And he said it's range, the erection fracture is usually between 55 to 70. And that's what the guy had before me. Yeah. And you could see the pump. Mine was like this. Like, it was like.
What's your ejection fraction?
It was 20. It was 20. Okay. Now it's 45. But
wow. Fantastic.
So that was after 10 months of being on medication and off of juice.
Bro, that's a huge improvement.
It's great. We're moving in the right direction, but there's been no improvement in the last 6 months. So that's why, like the video, I had all the heart monitor on because they're trying to figure out why I'm not getting better.
Well, 45 is still way better than, I mean,
of course, 20.
So for example, have you heard of Big Lenny? Have you ever heard of Big Lenny?
I've heard of Big Lenny.
Yeah, Big Lenny has around, I think, 20 to 30 ejection fraction. Also,
really?
Yeah. A lot of people have low ejection fractions, bro. People don't talk about it. It is a lot of people with long-term heart damage that have end up with ejection fraction. But you know what's interesting? So let's talk about it from the top down. This is such a difficult thing to catch because the only way you would have caught it is if you did an echocardiogram. Like, that's right. Like you wouldn't really see it in your blood work.
Yeah. No, this is the thing. Like because there's like really the symptoms of having, cardiomyopathy and being a pro bodybuilder at such a heavy weight is like,
it's your daily life.
It's like, breathing. Okay, you're winded between squats. You get dizzy sometimes. I get dizzy when I tie my shoes when I was almost 300 pounds. Like, so again, very hard to catch. That's why I was telling a lot of the guys out there that just go and get the echocardiogram done because it's, nothing bad is going to come out of it unless you wait and then, God forbid you die. But it's definitely something we all have to stay on top.
It's such a scary thing because, like, to be honest with you, I don't even tell clients to do echocardiograms often. I usually tell them to do the heart fMRIs if they're going to do if they're going to be bodybuilders or weightlift and stuff like that usually. But I don't think immediately that most people will be that close to heart failure or having a compromised heart. The interesting thing is, like, let's talk about what could have contributed to the damaging of the heart in the long term, because you bring up such an interesting point about insulin. So what's your theory on how insulin could contribute to the damage of the heart? I have some ideas myself.
This is the thing. So insulin is such an amazing, like, I hate to use the word amazing, but it is great at what it does. And when it shuttles the nutrients into the muscle, that's essentially when we're getting the recovery and the growth. But dose is a big issue because you could do the same thing at 5 to 6 IUs, which I was with Patrick, and I noticed amazing results. And because I didn't put the weight on as fast like I did with Milos, I was much more lethargic when I was with Milos, and I was thicker and heavier.
Yes.
And remember, I had the cardiomyopathy with Patrick too because I didn't go in yet. But when I was with Patrick, I was doing less and I was doing more cardio. I wasn't doing 1,000 grams of carbs a day. And this is the thing, your body, like most guys, most people, you cannot shuttle 1,000 grams of carbs into your muscle without spilling over and storing fat. Yeah. So that much is unnecessary. The drug is great, but it is dependent on how much you use, 100%.
Yeah. There's so many. So the thought that comes to mind to me. So first of all, I wanted to say a couple of things, interesting things. Maybe you didn't even know this yet about diabetes. So you know how diabetes, like when people get diabetic or type 1 diabetics and type 2 diabetics especially, they used to tell them you need tight blood sugar control. Like don't let your get hyperglycemia. Don't let your blood sugar go too high. Take your insulin. Always take your insulin. Keep your blood sugar under control. The interesting thing is using insulin in diabetes doesn't extend their life. Like if they don't use insulin, they'll go blind. They'll lose their limbs and shit.
Yeah,
they'll die the same age. That's the scary thing. They'll die the same age. Why is that? The only explanation could be that insulin is so bad for longevity that even though you're controlling their blood sugar, the amount of insulin you're pumping in is so bad for their health that they die younger. And it's obviously known that there are two things about insulin that harm health, right? One is the actual having high insulin levels they call hyperinsulinemia. The second is the consequence of that, which is insulin resistance. Both of them independently increase like the likelihood to get Alzheimer's disease, to get diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, cancer, especially cancer, but less so heart disease. Especially cancer is really associated with insulin. The thing that struck me when I was listening to your story was this idea of gaining a lot of water from the insulin, holding a lot of weight, water in your heart.
That's right.
Yeah. I've tried it before. I've tried insulin for short time periods with a lot of GH.
I don't know if you can see this. This is furosemide. It's a kind of Lasix. I got to take this every day now to try to reduce the amount of water being held in the heart.
Yeah. What people don't realize when they take 15 units of GH, which I know you weren't, but when they take that, immediately you gain so much water, you start breathing weird. Everybody knows that. That's tried it. You have to take a diuretic. Otherwise, you're holding that water all the time, which literally when you're having problems breathing, that's called heart failure. That's actually, if you go to a doctor, they'll be like, you're in mild heart failure right now. You can't breathe because your heart is not functioning properly. I don't know if you ever noticed, bro, but have you ever seen that Milos breathes really heavy? Like,
He does.
Constantly.
He does.
He looks like he's in heart failure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Weird. I noticed that.
And just to say, like, let's say hypothetically he was doing these crazy amounts of insulin still. I mean, I don't know what he's doing now. I don't really care too much, but let's say he was, and he gets away with it. That's great for him, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for me, you, and Bostin.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's like a good coach is more of like a friendship. It's a feedback. For you to know how to apply certain sciences on me, you need my opinion to see, how I feel, how I respond. It's not a dictatorship.
But I saw the messages as he would tell you, you know nothing about insulin. I saw the messages.
I have no experience. I'm like, why? Because I had a bad reaction and you can't like own up to it at all. Like, he had a hand in it. I'm not saying it was even his fault fully. I'm not saying, but he was slightly to a degree responsible.
He did not accept that at all.
No. He was like, he thinks I'm an idiot, and I don't give
anyone in the bodybuilding that's used insulin knows. I mean, dude, I've tried crazy amounts of insulin. The more insulin doesn't equivalent more muscle. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yes.
Maybe the more water retentive you get, yeah. But man, as long as you, in fact, you get better benefits out of insulin using it less frequently. If you do it every day or every training day, your body gets used to it. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And especially, and like Bostin was just saying, when you're able to do less of it, it actually becomes more useful for the body because you're not getting used to it. You don't have to increase the doses and you're not putting on the weight as quick to affect the heart. So ideally, like, if you're just kind of doing it more, like I remember with one of my coaches, I was just doing it more for weaker body part days to get that extra uptake of nutrients after training. My arms are shit. So I usually like to do them after arms. You do them on your weak body part days, and it's so beneficial because you're not jacking up, the doses so often. You don't have to have a crazy amount of carbs as often and get fat. And the weight and the carbs come along together, and that will affect your heart. Gaining weight too fast is fucking horrible.
Absolutely.
And I mean, let's be honest. Milos wasn't known for being a mass monster. He had good shape and he was aesthetic. Yeah. Look at Dave Palumbo. Dave Palumbo used 20 to 30 units of insulin, with his growth hormone, Humulin R, and he was a mass monster. And some of the biggest guys I talked to use maybe 20 units a day, of Humulin R. So, to think that pushing all that insulin in your body is going to give you better results is absolutely insane. In fact, I think it'd be more counterproductive than anything.
And you're right, it is counterproductive because you're not again, at the end of the day, you could only uptake so much glycogen into the muscle. You're not going to just keep storing, glycogen and
then you just spill.
You just spill.
Well, not only do you spill, but you quickly desensitize to insulin. Like you said, the key is if you're using insulin like on your weaker body part days, what happens is you're not insulin resistant, but that day you have a super surplus of growth factors, your body will grow, and your homeostasis is still the same. But if you take insulin every day, you have to keep increasing the dose. By the way, people never talk about that. If you use insulin every day, the dose will keep increasing. Like type 2 diabetics, their dose increases every decade.
Yeah. This is a perfect example, guys. I haven't taken insulin for 8 weeks, okay? Today, I took a 10-unit shot of Humulin R with my breakfast, okay? And I started showering. I had 100 grams of carbs with my breakfast. I started showering about 2 hours later, and I started going hypo in the shower. Now, if I was doing 10 units every day, I would not even feel low blood sugar at all. I wouldn't go hypo at all. But because I haven't used it in so long, it hit me like a bag of bricks.
Which is why you can get away with doing less, essentially, right?
Exactly.
But there's another thing I wanted to mention also, which is like, growth hormone. If you look at it this way, we're not supposed to have like 3 units of growth hormone in our body as adults. If you have, the 6 units, 4 units maybe is a little lower. But if you were taking what Milos said, which is 15 units, if you did that when you were
you can afford that. I can't even afford that if I wanted to.
Say you did that when you were 20 till when you're 30, you would technically have acromegaly. You'd be like a giant technically. Giants die in their 40s from heart failure, specifically. They all die in their 40s or 50s from heart failure. So growth hormone also is extremely bad for the heart in adulthood. It's just all giants die of heart failure. That's what they die of. So if you just took growth hormone at 10 units even without insulin, you would be expected to die before 50 of a heart attack.
You said it, without insulin. Yeah. Now put insulin on top of that.
Insulin on top with the water gaining. and everything else. And the thing that struck me though, honestly, is he said in his messages to you, I care most about health. Like that's my most important.
It's fucked up because I feel like maybe subconsciously he wants to, but his concern is more about his athletes doing well, and he's so easy to redirect my concerns that I had. And you know, he's not. I don't even personally not. I don't hate him because he does. This is the sad thing. He didn't just do this to me. I might be the only one talking about it, or I might be the only one or one of the few who have cardiomyopathy. But he prescribes or suggests to do this amount of insulin for, if not every athlete,
everyone, Mike, everyone, even guys that come in that hire him at 19, it's all the same program.
And like that's horrendous. And imagine 19, you're not even done puberty.
Everyone gets that same program.
So that's the thing. It's like, I know he didn't do it against me. It's not like he's like, fuck Mike, I'm going to get this guy to do 65 IUs. So I don't have a personal vendetta for Milos. It's more of just making people aware that, like Bostin said, it's so common for him to be telling people to do these doses that they need to watch out for their health first, because he cares about his athletes doing well. But if you croak after the show that you won, he still got the win. It doesn't necessarily mean he's going to give a fuck. A lot of these pro trainers have a lot of blood on their hands, and they're so easy to redirect it. Oh, I don't know. Maybe they're doing other drugs or whatever. And
usually, that's what they say.
The only people who suffer is your family.
That's true.
So do it look into your health for them, and question this shit.
Yeah, because we don't live for ourselves. Other people care about you, and even if you don't think they do, there are other people that care about you.
Your father, right? Especially kids. I know a lot of fucking pros have kids. No, I don't.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So let's mention a couple of things, brother, just because these things don't get mentioned enough. Now, we know about kidney failure being common in all powerlifting, bodybuilding, everything else that's common. You brought up an interesting thing, which we don't see that often, or people don't talk about it. Heart failure, a reduction in the heart, necrosis in the heart, reduction in the heart's ability to pump, all of those kind of things. Then there's also what happened to Dallas. I mean, I know he had a heart attack, but severe atherosclerosis, that's also somewhat common. I mean, not so somewhat common.
I don't even really know. Did Dallas have heart failure?
No, he had a heart attack, but in his what do they call that thing? The autopsy. In the autopsy, they said he had severe atherosclerosis, which is weird at his age. So meaning he had a lot of plaque. So one of the things I always tell people is check your kidney genes. Check if you have an APOL1 variant. That's APOL1. That's what causes African Americans to get kidney failure more than white people usually. Not everybody has it. Some white people have it. If you have that, you should probably not bodybuild. You should probably not use androgens. Simple as that. And then you should look at your heart genes. You should see if you have an ApoE4 variant, which would make you get atherosclerosis way faster. There are other genes that are important too. But then the heart failure issue, the only way to check that, I guess, is over time to keep doing echocardiograms.
Right. Those are the most accurate.
That's the only way.
You see, physically see the function of the heart and what it's doing.
I mean, otherwise you wouldn't know. Yeah.
He is just checking it's just checking the beat.
Exactly. And then
right.
Talk about another thing. I have 2 subscribers of this channel that have liver cancer right now. Both of them from androgens. One was using trenbolone for a few years, no orals. The other one was using a bit of orals.
When you say a few years, is this not stopping?
Yeah, 3 years not stopping on tren.
Oh.
Yeah, unfortunately. So liver cancer it's very unlikely to survive. To check for that, you have to check your alpha fetoprotein. It's 70% of people with liver cancer have elevated alpha fetoprotein. Or you could do, ultrasounds of your liver. And then, so those are the main, and then arrhythmias. Another thing people don't talk about, Dave Paul has arrhythmia. A lot of people have arrhythmias, I think, from stimulants, taking stimulants over time. So we have the stimulants, the water retention in the heart. It's a recipe for, I have a thickened left ventricle personally, but I did. Yeah. When I checked my when I did my fMRI a few years ago, when I stopped weightlifting, but I assume it's probably lessened. I've been taking a beta blocker every day for the last few years, trying to get it.
You got medication for that.
Of course, yeah. So that's another thing people don't think about is this. For example, brother, think about this. Imagine the whole last 10 years, every time you went to the gym, when we go to the gym for the next 8 hours or so, your heart is stressed, that's elevated. Imagine every time you went to the gym, say you took an Anadrol or something, right after you finish the gym, you took a beta blocker. So for the next 6 hours, your heart slowed down a bit. So I'm thinking some things people could do to potentially lessen the damage, like take obviously an ARB or an ACE inhibitor to open your blood vessels, don't have hypertension, take a beta blocker maybe sometimes, a few things like that, empagliflozin for your kidneys.
I honestly, I've been taking, and I know Patrick said he does the same. I've been taking an aspirin every day, baby aspirin, just to thin out the blood and really prevent any potential heart attack.
I would do that.
I mean, prevent it if you're gonna have a heart attack.
Brother, think about this. Aspirin, sure, it has a lot of evidence for. Maybe in addition to aspirin or as a replacement. Personally, I take, instead of aspirin, I take a very high dose of EPA fish oil. Now, in the Vascepa trial of fish oil, they did 4 grams of EPA, 25% reduction in heart attacks among people with heart conditions on statins. And that's because EPA thins the blood, but it also reduces inflammation in the body, both.
Right.
So it might be cool to combine it with.
Yeah, actually, it's a good point, because I remember I went in for one of my surgeries and they told me I had to stop taking fish oil a week out. And I'm like, I never knew. I'm like, why do I have to stop taking fish oils? And they told me at that point, it thins out the blood. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't tell you, obviously you have to ask your cardiologist, but there is an actual fish oil medication they can prescribe you. It's called Vascepa. It's just pure EPA. They can prescribe it to you and your insurance would cover or the...
It's interesting because I feel like, and I talked about this with Nick very briefly, he was asking about my diet, but like the cardiologist is like, it's almost like they're just scheduled to just prescribe you the drugs. And it's like the set drugs. Like he never recommended fish oil or anything like that.
Well, one of the drugs
he didn't say eat this or don't do this or whatever. It was just like, take these. And I'm like, what else? He's take resveratrol. And that's it. I'm like, okay. Because
brother, it's such a complicated subject to try to figure out how to heal the heart. It's one of the, there's no easy answer. There's a few drugs they look at. I mean, I haven't studied the topic completely, but it's really complicated. It's no easy thing.
I also feel like, most doctors don't have efficient, like exponential amount of knowledge in regards to natural supplements. It's like they go to med school to study drugs, not to really get into the whole natural.
Well, you're missing. Well, your doctor's missing an actual drug. Fish oil is also a drug. It's approved in the US and Canada to treat like some heart conditions, but maybe not yours. But he's also maybe not mentioning it. Maybe there's a reason they're not mentioning it. I don't know. But anyway, I wanted to let you know. So we have a bunch of questions from our subscribers. Every week, me and Bostin have questions from subscribers. This week, we've invited you in, so you have to answer them with us for a little bit. Otherwise, the subscribers will be upset. So, but I really appreciate your story. It was really interesting, and I think it's...
Yeah, I just want to help, and I'm just really happy that you guys had me on, so I was able to kind of give my piece.
Me too, yeah. And I feel like it should all make us think, because to be honest, I think a lot of people don't think about the weakening of the heart, that Big Lenny has. The only other person I knew was Big Lenny, and a couple of people that are not public.
It's sad because a lot of the times people figure out they have a good heart is once the person's already passed. But it's not just the heart they got to look out for. I mean, look at Bostin, kidney, and your other prescribers, liver, some of your subscribers who said.
Now, Leo, what do you think, who's in a worse spot? Somebody who has stage 5 kidney failure or 20% heart?
This is the difficulty. So basically, like, he doesn't have 20 now. First of all, so if he had 20, it would be way worse, obviously. But I'm no expert. But the difficulty is this: it's not that easy to get the heart working better. So the worst case scenario would be that slowly your heart would deteriorate over the next 10 or 20 years, and then you do a heart replacement. And then they do you'd get it for 20 or 30 years. That's the worst case scenario, right?
If your body takes it, sometimes, your body doesn't take a new heart because it is a lot to adjust to, right?
I've met a few people with heart replacements actually here. Yeah, God.
Well, that's great. I mean, I hear success stories.
Yeah,
I hope I never have to go down that path, but
I think they're doing much better with it, by the way. Just so you know, and they do last 20, 30 years, but that's in the long. So with the kidney, Bostin, the biggest problem you have basically is the longer you have your kidney like this, the more toxins you have in your body, the uremic toxins, causing you problems over time. The quicker you replace the kidney, then you just have to deal with the fact that you're taking those medications, So I'd prefer to have the kidney thing personally.
Yeah. I wanted to let you know that I stopped all the my piss started looking way better. And less foam, right?
We talk about here, Mike. We talk about piss every week.
People don't know this because maybe someone's having foamy piss and they're like, okay, I don't have it anymore. It's a good thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So they can relate to it.
Yeah. So my piss is way less foamy. And for about 3 weeks now, Leo, I don't have the ammonia taste in my mouth. It's gone. So I don't know.
Really, I hope something is getting better. Of course, you want. So we have let's start with this first question. So Ken Hurst asked, Leo, have you tried convincing Bostin to stop injecting himself with so many compounds all the time? What was his response? Do you think he's a freak of nature that can survive it forever, or will it hit him hard when he's old? So I wanted to answer this question because some of the audience is new and maybe they don't know the history of me and Bostin. So I have tried to convince Bostin many times to stop injecting everything. But the thing is, to be honest with you, let's talk about it realistically. I don't think the most dangerous thing in Bostin's life, personally, I don't think it's what he's injecting. I think the things that I really tried to advise him originally to do was to lose all the weight and become skinny, and then as quickly as possible get a kidney replacement. But if he's not doing that, the biggest danger, I think, is the uremic toxins in his body, not probably what he's injecting, because it's just the kidney not filtering everything over time. But yeah, I try to convince Bostin.
Bostin, what's his weight at, man?
I'm like 250.
How's your so I'm sure the doctors have probably asked you to not eat as much protein, or you can.
Yeah, I don't listen to anything. They know that they know that I don't listen. Like my Indian doctor, I'm actually gonna go try a new doctor out in June. But my Indian doctor was like, I know you. He goes, every time I see him, he's like, I know you don't listen anyways.
Hey, Bostin,
you're coming in more jacked for every checkup. So they're like, there's no way they're not listening.
Yeah, Bostin doesn't listen.
He's like, his first question, are you still salting your foods? And I'm like, yes.
But hold on, you can't use Himalayan salt?
He doesn't want me salting anything.
Yeah, so he didn't say you can't have sea salt, but Himalayan
no salt. They want me to remove all salt.
Bostin, you know that guy who competed while he was on dialysis? I forgot his name.
Don Long.
Don Long. You know Don Long was going to go to the Jacksonville Mayo Clinic that I was telling you about weeks ago?
He may have. Yeah,
he said no. He said he signed up there originally for his transplant before he got it from the donor.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is a good place. You need to go check it out.
Me and Don Long, we talk a bit on Instagram. We talked today.
We got to get him on the show. I really like that.
Yeah, when I sent him that message about the I know he got on muscular development, but I'd love to hear his story, man. I'd love to hear that story.
Awesome. Okay.
He did while he was on dialysis.
Dude, he did a contest prep and on dialysis. He looked amazing.
So hold on, he was obviously running a cycle.
Of course, yeah.
Holy fuck.
He was like, I didn't have kidneys, so whatever. So I just
right. Yeah. Dialysis is getting filtered out anyways, I guess, right?
Yeah, if you're gonna do a contest prep after you've been in kidney failure, the best time to do it is when you're on dialysis. The only problem is you want to get switched over to the daily one where you're getting cleaned out every day when you sleep, because the clinic ones you go 3 times a week for 6 hours, and those are just it's too up and down.
All right, guys, I got to take a question that's a little bit about psychology, but it really touched me. So Milad, who's a long-term subscriber, listener to the channel, he says, hi, Leo. Is it possible to lower the permanent effects of long-term steroid usage on the brain? And if so, how? I've watched your video on the topic, but didn't come to a conclusion about what to do. It's affecting my daily life. Despite being on TRT for 2 years, I get in fights every month, and I have 3 ongoing lawsuits for violence. I'm on 100 milligrams of sertraline, which is an SSRI, and 500 milligrams of depakine, which is, I'll tell you guys about later, for a year now. And last week I got in a fight where 2 people got hospitalized. Now they added another 500 milligrams of depakine and 1 milligrams of risperidone daily, which makes me feel awful and impairs my daily life badly. Thank you. So I wanted to answer this. So it's interesting. I am sorry, Milad. I didn't really give specific advice in that video because at the time I was still just getting to understand the effects of steroids in the brain. I now believe that the best long-term rehabilitation for the brain from steroids is specifically manipulating neurogenesis and serotonin. What steroids clearly do, if people use if rodents use steroids when they're juveniles, they cannot be healed long-term. They remain aggressive for the rest of their lives. But if rodents use steroids as adults, they end up being less aggressive after a period of years.
Which is why people usually suggest it to start after you're done puberty. I mean,
it clearly damages permanently the, and the rodents, they're totally different if they use it in juvenile years. And also they can end up infertile for life, Anyway.
Yeah, I can see that.
So he's taking 100 milligrams of sertraline, which is an SSRI. Number one, Milad, you're at half dose of the max dose, and sertraline is a horrible SSRI in my opinion because it blocks sigma-1. I would rather use fluvoxamine as an SSRI, and if you would want to scale up to, if you're dealing with these kind of things, you need to scale up to around 200 milligrams, which is the maximum dose is 300. You want to avoid serotonin syndrome. If you get serotonin syndrome, you could take a beta blocker or a Seroquel or something like that. But number one, you want an SSRI at a high dose if you respond to SSRIs. How can you know, Milad? Check your BDNF gene. There's a Val-Met polymorphism that determines if you respond to SSRIs, and check your promoter region of serotonin. If both of those are fine, you could use fluvoxamine. If they're not, use amitriptyline and slowly get to 75% of the max dose or so. The second thing is you're taking Depakote, which is sodium valproate. That slows down the system. It's upregulates GABAergic signaling, which is great through sodium channels. I think it's a great choice, Depakote. What I would add on to it is a beta blocker, propranolol. That's what they give for intermittent explosive disorder, this kind of anger disorder. Propranolol combined with serotonin. That's the way to do it. And the combination is great together. I would take propranolol twice a day, 40 milligrams. I would raise my SSRI dose. I would remove risperidone. It has horrible side effects. I've taken it before, but they can cause you gynecomastia, all kinds of weird shit. Remove that. Take Seroquel. I would personally take Seroquel 100 to 200 milligrams at night. That will slow you down and make you impotent and stop you attacking people. I used to attack people a lot also, and I use these methods, propranolol, SSRI, Seroquel, to calm my system down, and now I no longer have these issues, but it took a long time. I would highly recommend these 3 drugs.
I have a question. So prior, since you know a lot about this specific subscriber, did this individual what led to these problems? Was it steroid abuse at a young age, which led to kind of, aggressive issues that kind of led into this?
Actually, I don't know him that well. I just know him because he's been commenting for a long time. But I wanted to say, he's saying that he has long-term effects from taking androgens. He's become more violent, which could potentially happen. And maybe he's just predisposed originally. He's aggressive naturally. It made him a bit more aggressive. But what I was trying to talk about is what I believe androgens do is this, especially when you use an aromatase inhibitor, they reduce serotonergic signaling. They cause a reduction in neurogenesis, and they cause apoptosis in the brain. So what would you do to correct it? Increase serotonergic signaling or increase estradiol and increase neurogenesis. You could use cerebrolysine also. But to inhibit aggression, you want to raise GABA, block adrenaline, and increase serotonin. He has valproate for GABA, and he needs to block adrenaline also, I think, and then raise his serotonin and change the drug. And Seroquel will slow the whole system down. So it'll make you a little bit, and it'll help you sleep well, which I think is a good choice.
So he does. So currently he's on these.
He's on 3 drugs, but one of the drugs causes a lot of side effects, risperidone, and the other drug, the serotonin, he's really underutilizing. That's all I want to say. Okay,
so he's not on any cycles while he's doing this.
No, he's on TRT. He's on. That's another thing we mentioned. Yeah, you shouldn't be on aromatase inhibitor also.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so we'll move on to Eustace. Eustace says, I guess he's asking Bostin, but you might know also, Mike. He says, do you have any insider info into Oxygen Gym's drug protocols?
No, I think it's a little bit blown out of proportion what they do over there. I've had a few people that went out there, nobody big in names, but I think it's a little blown out of proportion. But I know all their drugs over there are real because they get it right from the pharmacy. I think that's the biggest difference is you can get pharmaceutical grade humatrope out there for dirt cheap, so you can afford a shitload of growth hormone, and the Americans can't afford all the GH that those guys are taking. I think that's the biggest difference.
What I heard, and to me, having the health issues that I have, just being a pro bodybuilder, even if I didn't have any health issues, apparently they don't want any of the guys knowing the protocols they're getting, so they don't tell their friends and stuff. So they're injecting you with you don't really know the doses or what you're really getting injected into you.
I heard that. I heard the people come to your room and inject you.
Yeah, they do your shots for you. They do your shots for you. I know that.
And you don't really know. You're like, if it's a little bit orange, you might know there's some trend in there. But other than that, you won't really have much of an idea. And I would really hope that, they're going about it 100%, which, I haven't heard anything tragic. Cool. Anyone under the camp, but these guys, I'm assuming have, your blood work and everything kind of sort out to prevent any issues, especially if I'm getting shot with gear and I don't know what the fuck I'm taking. I hope that you guys know my blood history, my blood work. So
they don't do blood work out there. That's why Regan came back to Canada pretty fast, because he said that it was just too much chemicals for him. He didn't want to do it. He said he did not feel healthy out there.
Getting loaded to the gills.
I'm actually trying to get in contact with one of the guys there. I want to see what they do. Hopefully, maybe we can find out soon. Okay, but he also asked. I thought this would be interesting. I don't know about this. He asked you, Bostin, does your forum have the drug protocols of Aceto, Rambod, Nichols, and all these kind of people? And then a guy called Abu Sagr, which means the father of the falcon in Arabic, he said, I'm not Bostin, but I've seen many protocols of coaches, but not Rambod. I think the forum is the best invention that I've discovered lately. I'm very happy Abu Sagr said this. I was telling Bostin this too. He was surprised today that I actually use the forum also, and I enjoyed quite a bit.
That was good to hear. As far as the protocols, no, I have not listed the protocols on there. Maybe I could put them. I don't want to do that. I don't
want to upset them, huh?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I don't care about that. But I don't know, man. I paid a lot of money for that stuff, and then these coaches will be like, oh, whatever, and then you got all these. But Hany Rambod is smart as fuck, because I'll tell you what, he worked with a friend of mine, Seth Sandler, and Seth told me everything that he had him doing. Seth was 19 at the time. He was a teen national guy. He won the Teenage Cal. This kid was incredible, and Hany transformed him, and I knew everything he was on. Hany doesn't do the whole drug thing on the over the internet. He doesn't send protocols. He handwrit the diet for this guy. He told him the drug cycles on the phone. So nothing was in writing from Hany's email. He's one of the only coaches that's smart enough to do that. So you're not going to have anything from Hany like that.
Now, speaking about Seth under Hany, didn't Seth Feroci have like?
You're thinking about Seth Feroci. My buddy was.
I know there's a difference. I'm just saying. Speaking about a Seth under his guidance, didn't he have he was having a great career and he was under Hany, and then something happens in regard to his kidney?
Yeah, they had a big falling out. He had some health issues with Hany, and he was blaming Hany for a bit through various people, and I guess it got back to Hany, and they had a big falling out. But now they're back in friends. They even did a podcast together.
Oh, nice.
Seth admitted that he was wrong in blaming Hany, but he definitely had. They had some kind of health issues going on with their prep. Yes,
he disappeared. He was a big name. I remember seeing him at Toronto Pro, and then he kind of disappeared and stopped competing. And I remember he was.
I don't know exactly what it was, but it was something like that.
His incredible arms. That guy's tricep is just shocking. He's born with a tricep that I was born without. God blessed me with no tricep, and he gave it to Seth. I guess he gave it 2 triceps to him. Anyway, so Davyboy says, I love Davyboy. By the way, I've noticed something. Davyboy, thank you so much. I've been watching my Instagram comments. I now have defenders of myself. Like Davyboy, my buddy, goes and defends me every time somebody says something nasty on my page. I love it. Anyway, Davyboy asks, he said, what are both of your thoughts on Dave Crossland? I'm thinking of hiring him for coaching. But then Kyle Wall, who's also a guy, he said, I'll coach you, bro. And then Davyboy says, can you teach me how to not get any pussy? You seem highly qualified. I really like this going on. Anyway, do you know anything about Dave Crossland? Do you guys know about him?
I just seen his YouTube stuff, and I know he talks a lot of shit about me, but he goes off on me all the time. I don't know much about him though.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I don't know much about him either. I thought maybe Boston would know. I mean, if people, I feel like generally, if somebody wants to hire a coach for drug use, you should either hire somebody that knows how to get things done with drugs, like Chad Nichols or Hany Rambod. All these guys know how to get things done with drugs, or somebody who knows how to protect you from drugs, because they either been through health issues like Dave has. Dave Crossland has had kidney issues before, so someone maybe can protect you because he's been through it, or knows the academia behind it.
Personally, I would hire somebody who knows how to apply the drugs, not just someone who gets the job done. Because, let's say example, Milos, since we're talking about him anyways, if he gives everyone the same fucking protocol, it doesn't necessarily mean that things are getting done efficiently. You want someone who knows about drugs to give us 3 different protocols based on how we react to the compounds along with the diet. It's not just cookie cutter shit, because how about if I don't respond as well to DECA as maybe you do, or I don't respond well to orals, it kills my appetite and I don't eat? And
that's why cookie cutter coaches like Milos, they may work for 1 out of every 10 clients he gets. Yeah.
And the 9 that don't work for him and call him out, apparently they don't know anything.
Which is why it's great to hire, I think, a coach that respects you as a customer also. So like if you have
the fucking human, right?
Yeah, like somebody who doesn't have too many or values you, pays attention to you, Mm-hmm. Okay, so and now Kyle, the guy who was commenting there, says he has thoughts on treating polycythemia. That's when you have too much hematocrit, when your red blood cells are too high from taking steroids usually.
Giving blood doesn't usually help, no?
It does, yeah. He says, have you ever phlebotomized at home? Can you just stick an 18 gauge syringe in your arm and let the blood drain in the sink? This is a great question. So I have wanted to do this for a while. I still haven't, but I have a plan now, and it's going to happen soon. But I wanted to help you guys out. So for people who are curious about this, I had the same problem. You can't just put an 18-inch gauge into your arm. First of all, there's a couple of kind of needles you want. But even if you got those needles, you need a vacuum. You need a container with a vacuum to pull out the blood, right? So what I did for you guys, I went to Boston's forum. In the miscellaneous section, I posted a new thread called Therapeutic Phlebotomies. And there's a guide I received from a nurse on how to do it at home and which devices to buy. Of course, don't hold me responsible. Do it under doctor supervision, but the instructions are there. So if somebody needs it. So Chul Skinator says, can you discuss... Oh, Jeff Davy's massively huge arm. I just want to mention really quickly. I know you guys don't know about him. There's this weird arm wrestler. Not weird, a cool guy arm wrestler who has an arm that's this big on the other side. Like, one of his arms is... I'm going to put a picture here.
Like
one of
Greg
his arms is,
Huh? Like Greg Valentino?
No, his hand is freaking this big. One arm, the hand is this big, the wrist is this big, the whole arm is just like that. But his leg is also like that. I've actually met Jeff Davies before, a few years ago, and his arm it's like a mutant arm. I asked him about how he developed it.
You mean his bicep and tricep too? Like his whole arm, or just his hand and forearm?
No, his it goes like from here and just keeps getting thicker until his hand. And then his leg does the same thing on the leg. But so his leg, unfortunately, so he limps also because one leg's really heavy. But he's very good at arm wrestling. He's really strong because this arm is just so thick.
Why the leg though? I get the arm because the arm wrestling.
It's one side. It's one side of his body. It's a weird mutation. It's such
a. Okay. Yes,
but yeah, he is strong. For the guy that asked, it's interesting that you know him. He is strong. Okay, so Rowan Tyler Davis asked, what are the best non-steroidal PEDs to use for weightlifting? What do you guys think?
Creatine.
No. He's talking about any PED. It could be growth hormone, insulin. It could be anything. Erythropoietin. Just not steroids.
Boston, you could go because you were on to something.
I know, Mike. You're gonna say insulin.
As ironic as it is, I was. But I feel more of a long-term use because you'll gain more muscle tissue. It's not something you would take right away, like let's say a caffeine and feel it. And I know some guys like to do anadrols, but that's obviously a PED. For me, I would say long-term, the best thing to do is a low dose, responsible amount of insulin. 100% would be most beneficial.
Are you naturally skinny?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I thought so.
I'm going to go with IGF-1.
Oh, are you talking about like Increlex or the IGF-1 LR3?
Just pure IGF-1. There's a source on my forum for pure IGF. You know the guy that sells the Q-Tropin.
Oh, fantastic. I need to experiment with. Anyway, I'll tell you guys. So basically now I'm experimenting with some things I've never used before, so I can make some videos on them. So I was telling Boston, so I'm going to try that also. I want to try the real IGF.
It's called Insabolic, but it's pre-mixed. But
so you that into your muscle, like you shoot it into the muscle, you just train at post-training?
That one, yes. You shoot bilaterally in the muscle, train 30 minutes prior, and the pumps are just retarded.
So you do it before you train, pre-workout?
That one you do before, yes.
Okay,
yeah, the pumps are crazy on that stuff, dude. Like next level, like way better than insulin pumps.
Okay, but how often can you use it in a row before you start to...
I would say 4 days a week. I would say 3 to 4 times a week max. It kind of is the same thing as insulin. If you do it every day at the same dose, you just use effects.
Yeah. That's what I noticed too when I used LR3 before. My opinion is actually...
Look what I got.
What's that?
The ruler. You know what that
I didn't imagine it. Keep asking. What I was going to say is amphetamines, to be honest. Like, because I'm not talking about bodybuilding. I'm talking about sports. He's saying sports in general, performance enhancing. I think in general, many people don't know this. In baseball, they used to use what are called greenies, or amphetamines, before steroids. Amphetamines were very prevalent. The amphetamines make people stronger in the gym, just like think of Clenbuterol, but more intense.
Amplified. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not healthy, but it's very performance enhancing.
So you take it before you're up to bat and you go out there and
you'll be faster. Your coordination will be better. Your nerves. Think about this. When you use Clen, don't you get stronger a little?
Well, I mean, due to the ability to breathe in more oxygen, yes.
No, it's also because of actually, if you just increase adrenaline in the body, gene transcription changes and you get stronger just from adrenaline. So Clenbuterol agonizes the adrenaline receptor. Amphetamines upregulate the whole sympathetic nervous drive. So getting that amped thing, if you just get amped,
are you talking like this is dose dependent, I'm assuming?
Yeah, you'd probably need like 50 milligrams of Adderall to do this or something like that. You need a lot.
Right.
And I would not suggest anyone do this, for God's sake. Please don't do this. I would never do this myself. I'm just saying, like, technically, if you're going to war, you'd want an amphetamine with you. You know, if you're going to war, you want amphetamine and steroids.
You know, the Germans, like when methamphetamine first came around, the Hitler made like the SS battalions who were going out and doing like when they were taking over like Poland on foot, they would fucking walk and they would be hopped up on methamphetamines. And at the time it was legal.
Yeah.
Right. And giving it to, you know, kids and whatever, for whatever reasons. I don't know what you needed to be, you know, eligible to have, but they used to do that. Yeah.
Not just that, what they don't tell us is that the Americans were also on amphetamines. The American pilots, the British pilots, and the whole German army was on amphetamines.
It's
and
funny, Americans, everyone's just blaming the fucking.
They don't tell you about that. The whole World War II was on amphetamines. Both sides, everybody was on amphetamines.
I believe it.
And the amphetamine use was so bad in the German military that there was a time when they were trying to occupy Russia where the people were so hopped up on amphetamines, they thought the Russians were close to them. There was this one battle where it wasn't a real battle. The Germans thought the Russians were there. They started shooting in the dark. They wasted all their ammunition. There were no Russians there. The Russians captured them the next day. They ran out because they were hallucinating on amphetamines. They were awake for so many days. Yeah, there's a lot of funny stories like that from World War II. Okay, we got off topic. So Joshua says, it would be awesome if the two of you went over PEDs that females can use without a high risk of virilization or masculinization. You guys
I just want to say right off the bat, I feel like that's totally dose dependent because I have girls sometimes, you know, start seeing side effects at 10 milligrams. Some of them don't see nothing at 20 milligrams of Anavar. So that's something that I feel is definitely
that's true. But isn't the question compound wise?
Yeah, compound wise. They're asking.
Okay.
I would say Anavar, Ostrine, Rad 140. Those are the three that I like to rotate with females. Is it doesn't really seem to cause them any side effects at all at moderate dosages.
Do females use Primo?
Yeah, they do.
Low dose Primo is very popular, especially maybe not in bikini, but like figure, super popular.
It gets girls in a lot of trouble though because most Primo is fake. Most Primo is fake, so they think they're taking Primo and they're all like test pro.
Yeah, they're shooting fucking test pro.
Their tits are like fucking all blown up and shit.
I know.
Actually, I really would trust Boston's advice on this because your wife doesn't have that voice that a lot of other people have.
I made sure when she was in the fitness industry, I made sure all of her stuff was farm grade, like her Anavar and stuff. And dude, don't get me wrong, before me and her got together, her coach had her on Tren. Dude, she was on more Winstrol than me. He had her on injectable Winstrol at 21 years old. Injectable Winstrol, 50 mg every other day. He had her on Tren, Test Prop. Then get this, when she asked about Anavar, he's like, you can't take Anavar, it'll make you manly. The guy I swear to God, dude, this guy was he wanted to ruin her.
Dude, advising a female to take Tren, it's not even like there's a possibility it may aromatize. No, it's like you're drinking the poison. This is like the worst thing a female could take.
So she got lucky, Leo. So she got out, early. She realized real quick, she only did that for a few months. Wow. And then when me and her got together, I made sure everything was pharmaceutical grade, with her.
Were you getting the ampules, Boston?
Yeah. So for her, we were doing the Bayer Primo.
Yeah.
We tested everything for her. With me, I just would shoot anything. But for her, we would make sure her fucking shit was all good, man. I don't know about in your neck of the woods, Boston, but here there's a lot of fake Bayers floating around. Oh, dude, the Bayer I've used fake Bayer Proviron. It had nothing in it. And there's so much fake Bayer Primo amps out there. It's ridiculous. If anyone buys Primo amps, make sure to test them on like a Lab Max test, not a Dave Palumbo test kit, because those are their colors are too close. But Primo Lab Max app, because most of them are test probe, dude. Those Bayer ampules.
I believe it. And they're selling for $20 a pop.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You should be able to tell though if you're taking test prop instead of Primo, right? But especially the Proviron. If that
men do, because they just get like a boost and they think it's working.
Yeah, if you're
the problem is, Leo, with females, once they start figuring out maybe it's not Primo, the side effects are already like maybe irreversible by that point, right?
God damn, imagine a poor woman taking... Well, Winstrol is crazy, and Trent was crazy. Do you think he was lying to her when he said the Anavar would... Or were you stupid?
No, like he wanted to ruin her. Like
he was trying to...
he wanted to fuck... Dude, because like...
He tried picking her up and it didn't go well, and he's like, fuck you kind of thing.
They were intimate. He was way older. He was married. He was way older. He was in his late 30s. She was a very young... You know these girls, man. She was 20. She got influenced by a guy who just, was power and control. He wanted all that shit, like the muscle, and he wanted to fuck her up, man.
Crazy.
It's sad to hear.
All right, so a guy's name I can't pronounce, starts with an X. If a name starts with an X, what do? It's excellence, whatever. Anyways, he's asking, what's the best anti-aging and anti-inflammatory drug? I think there's no such thing as the best, but I think the most promising anti-aging drug probably is right now is the
GH?
No, I think GH is a aging drug. Is an aging drug because this is how I think of GH. This is the way I think of it, and sometimes I think it's like people don't realize that in our body we have a limited amount of stem cells, and your cells throughout your life they commit hyperplasia, they divide only a certain number of times. They can only reach around 40 something times before that cell reaches a dead end. It either dies, apoptosis, or it does it becomes senescent. Senescent cells, they cause your body to secrete inflammatory cytokines to deal with them. It's been shown, by the way, in like 70-year-old women, if you inject them in their knees with a senolytic, something that kills senescent cells, even if they have no cartilage, their pain will go away from their knee. So senescent cells are not something you want. When you take GH as an adult, you're putting fire on that. You're telling your body, divide. You're either going to go to senescence or death. There's nowhere else.
What dosage range are you referring to?
Anything that just like increasing growth hormone.
What do I use? Like, I'm not saying for bodybuilding purposes. I was more suggesting that anyone, like, let's say 40 plus that wants to take, 2 IUs, maybe 1 to 2 IUs 5-6 days a week to feel that fountain of youth side effect, right?
So there's a couple of things that now I should mention that when you're in your above the age of 60, it may be helpful to have growth hormone because it's good for your heart and for your brain at that age. A little bit of like 2 units or something like that, maybe.
And your body's not producing next to none.
Yeah, but just to put in perspective, obviously you may feel better on growth hormone, but what we do, people like me, is instead of using growth hormone, we actually take the drug I was about to mention is the opposite of growth hormone. It's called rapamycin. Rapamycin blocks all your body's growth pathways. It turns everything off. You can inject growth hormone, it will do nothing for you if you take rapamycin. So rapamycin, there are analogs of rapamycin that are being developed. They're called rapalogs that will turn off your growth pathways, hopefully turning off what's called mTORC1, but not mTORC2. Turning off mTORC1 extends life in humans. If you turn off their growth pathway in a mouse, if you do this every so often, the mouse life will expand by 40% or so. And the same thing can happen if you starve the mouse. So restricting calories turns off the growth pathways. So people who are trying to live very long, we're trying to turn off growth. But the biggest scam on earth is this growth hormone extends life. It actually just makes you feel better, probably shortens your life.
Mike, I think what Mike's saying is not like looks wise, but
feeling,
growth hormone is a youth drug is maybe as a physical. Like skin, hair, nails.
Yes.
But not as far as actually putting years on your life.
Right.
So they call this, now there's a new term they call Healthspan, which means like a mixture of how you feel, like healthy lifespan, like how you feel, because you don't want to live forever and feel like crap. So if you're feeling crap and growth hormone is making you feel better and you may give off some years, that's a choice you make, obviously. But what I was thinking is the most promising drugs are probably the ones that shut off the growth pathways. Like metformin does that, but rapamycin does that more.
Yeah, but do you think metformin, that's a really big debate in the bodybuilding world because some of the biggest guys I know love metformin. Do you think if you're taking exogenous growth hormone, that metformin will crush your growth hormone still, or no?
No, it's not strong enough to do that. If you're taking anabolics and growth hormone, it's not going to do anything. What it's going to do is help you shuttle glycogen into your muscle.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you because Dave Palumbo thinks it shuts off.
It's not strong enough. I've taken metformin for 4 years. I took metformin when I was on anabolics, when I was on growth hormone.
Did you notice, Leo? Did you notice any like side effects of your stomach hurting? Because I took it going to Tampa, and my stomach, I was in the fetal position, like in a fucking ball on the airplane on the way to Tampa, and I was like, I couldn't even I had to shit, and I couldn't even get up. I was in so much fucking pain.
That's
how much were you taking? How much were you taking?
I don't remember, but I remember at the time I told my coach, let's just start low. I mean, I like to start low with everything and see how I adapt. And I think it was like a half a pill, man. And I was fucking dying.
If it was your first couple times using it, it's your body getting used to it. 100% that happens.
Yeah. I cut off at that point. I'm like, what am I going to do this before I go on stage? I won't even be able to move out of this position. I can't even do a front relax with that amount of pain.
Boston's exactly right. So when you first start, you have to start at such a low dose. Basically, the main effect is GI distress. So when you start, you try to use the lowest dose where you don't notice GI distress. So you start like 100 milligrams, then you go to 300 when you don't notice anything, then you raise it. It immediately causes GI distress. That's the major issue it does, for sure. Okay, we'll move past this one. Hinanda asks, does using an ARB, which is a blood pressure medication, or a beta blocker, which blocks adrenaline, reduce strength acutely? Yes, it does. Beta blocker reduces strength much more than an ARB does. An ARB does a little bit. And the reason I think it does is because it loosens up your body, right? If you want your body to be strong, like when you put knee wraps on, you want everything tight. So if you want your blood vessels, if you want to be the strongest you can, be hypertensive. You want high hypertension. Like you want your nose bleeding like Larry Wheels. You want all of that stuff. So everything's tight.
I didn't know that about beta blockers. So they make you weak, huh?
They make you, if you take a propranolol right before the gym, but propranolol's only 8 hours. Nebivolol won't make you that.
I hated that, man. Like, I'll tell you what, that shit killed my workouts. I'll never take that again. But I'm talking about something like Cardivas.
Carvedilol does that a little bit differently because it has a different effect on the alpha adrenaline receptors. But yes, anything that's in your system, it will reduce adrenaline. The way Clen makes you stronger, beta blockers make you weaker.
Okay.
Part of the reason Anadrol or Tren make you stronger, like any drug that makes you stronger, any steroid that makes you stronger within an hour, it's doing that through adrenaline a little bit, like Halo. Huh?
Yeah, it's like test suspension. I usually take that before I train when I was obviously taking gear. But I feel anything that will prevent you from allowing that adrenaline to kick in when you're doing that fucking heavy set is obviously counterproductive in regards to,
exactly. But the reality is, while lifting, sometimes your systolic blood pressure will go to 400. So you actually get episodic extreme hypertension when lifting, which could contribute to kidney failure over time. Like it could be if you were not supposed to lift a 400 pound.
Like this for a short period of time, you're referring to like that last couple reps on the crazy heavy squats. That
I'm talking about like a power lifter that's doing a 1 rep max. I've read some articles that where kidney doctors they were looking through bodybuilders with kidney disease, and they were hypothesizing that it's possible that even just the episodic hypertension while weightlifting could be contributing over time to the deterioration of the kidney.
Even though it's such a short period, what is that, like
400?
20 seconds?
Because it's 400. Imagine just being totally stressed, but you do that every day. Normal people don't do that every day.
Yeah, I can see how that could fuck with somebody.
You know what I mean?
True.
But hopefully it's not. I mean, it's obviously not as bad as having hypertension all the time. Okay, so Arana Matthew says, have you... Oh, this is interesting. He said, have you ever tried combining Nebivolol and Clenbuterol? Nebivolol is a beta blocker and Clenbuterol is adrenaline agonist. And then he said, would it be similar to using the drug GC1? So I think he's thinking GC1 is that thyroid drug that doesn't affect your heart. So if you wanted to do that, you would want to use like T3 with a beta blocker, which I've been doing a little bit recently, experimenting with it. It does something similar to that. It wouldn't do it completely. But I've never tried combining Clenbuterol with a beta blocker because that's ridiculous. There's no reason to do that.
I honestly, I'm on Cardivas and I took like 40 mcgs of Clen the other day.
Did you really?
Usually it would fuck me up, like it would get me jittery. Because, dude, I haven't taken Clenbuterol forever. I took pharmaceutical grade 40 MCGs, and I didn't feel a fucking thing. So I think it definitely cancels that shit out, dude.
Neutralized.
Yeah, it blocks it up. He tried it anyway. This is crazy. Okay, I can't make this stuff up. Brune Battery says, any recommendations for someone who wakes up in the middle of the night and can't get back to sleep, trying to avoid taking sleeping pills? I think Bostin actually has the answer to this. Have you tried the beta blocker before bed yet?
I hate it. Beta blocker before bed was good, but I woke up tired and I had to train later in the day. I was so fucked up. I took the Cardivas with the 40 mgs of propranolol before bed. And don't get me wrong, dude. I woke up with no anxiety and I took a lot of drugs the day before. That was the day I took 7 cc's.
Oh, really?
I took the propranolol because I was like, I don't want to wake up all fucked up. And it fucking worked. But dude, my workout that day was fucking terrible.
That's great.
Did you get like ample amount of meals with a good nap in prior to training that night?
Oh, dude, that stuff makes you into a zombie, that propranolol. I'm sure if you take it consistently like Leo does, it doesn't affect you as bad. But I just threw it in one day and it fucking destroyed me.
No, the first time it's too powerful. Yeah, for sure. But just to answer his question, though, the reason why people wake up in the middle of the night, normally when you wake up, cortisol and adrenaline, they start rising like 3 hours before you wake up, and then they wake you up. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, usually you're woken up by those two hormones. So your nervous system, it's telling you that you're supposed to be awake or stressed at the wrong time. So you could block it with like Seroquel, which will block a lot of the receptors and keep you awake. If you do that maybe for a month, you might regulate it, the circadian rhythm. Or you could take something like a beta blocker. But if you take it before bed, you might have nightmares. I get nightmares.
Leo, I want to add to this question because I feel like it's very common. I have a lot of friends and myself and family members. They get up in the middle of the night to pee. I think it happens to everybody, right? But they cannot go back to sleep. Do you feel taking anything that's not a beta blocker, maybe something on the more natural side prior to sleeping would help you just maybe go into deeper sleep so you don't have to pee till you wake up?
This is such an interesting question. You know, there are some people who take drugs to make themselves retain more urine while they sleep so they don't wake up to pee. But the problem is those drugs are associated with bladder cancer. You're not supposed to keep that urine in. The only solution to this is to drink less water before you sleep if you wake up because of that. Otherwise,
I train at night, so for me, it's clockwork. Like I always wake up to piss. I just try to take enough melatonin so that I'm so dopey when I get up to pee, and I just stay in the dark like a vampire. I go back to my room that has no windows, and I just slip back into a coma, you know?
Well, I have a good natural remedy that works for all my clients who have problems sleeping. 200 mgs of 5-HTP.
Okay.
10 milligrams of melatonin. GABA, usually just the dose recommended on the bottle. And what else do and 3 caps of ZMA.
Oh, I mean, if you want to use things to put you to sleep, look, you could do this. Valerian root is the most potent. Huh?
GHB.
Yeah, you could use GHB. You could use valerian root, glycine, like 3 grams of glycine, taurine, melatonin, Bacopa monnieri. All these things are, the other ones are GABAergic. Combine that with melatonin. And if you want to improve your REM sleep, add something cholinergic, like huperzine or Bacopa monnieri, these things.
And this stuff you could get like at a natural, I guess, supplement store.
Yeah, these things, they're all basically, and by the way, if you want to use GABA, use picamilin from Cosmic Nootropic. You can find picamilin, which is GABA combined with niacin, the B vitamin. If you combine them together, it gets into the brain. So you can get GABA into the brain. So when you take it before bed, you'll actually feel more tired, not just like peripherally.
GABA does work, actually. I've tried GABA and I noticed, like, because it helps release growth hormone, right?
Yes, it does also.
Yeah, just that happening. I was super drowsy after I took it.
Yeah, that concoction with the GABA, ZMA, 5-HTP, dude, and the melatonin, that knocks me and my clients out. Like, if my clients have trouble sleeping on trend, that natural remedy helps. And you can get those for like a few dollars on Amazon. Like, it's hella cheap.
Yeah, maybe one day I should make a video on like all the list of supplements that are GABAergic, because I have this series on GABA. So I've looked at every single herbal extract or whatever that's known to be GABAergic. If you combine those together, you'll sleep. But the thing is this, it'll do it for one day for you, and then you'll adapt to it. The only advantage could be that you're forcing your circadian rhythm to go slower at night. In the morning, you'll have less GABAergic signaling. Well, anyway, it's a little complicated. So Caligula says, ask Bostin about conceiving a child on gear. high doses HCG, and if he thinks it's true that gear users usually conceive girls.
I think that's bullshit because my clients have had a lot of boys. Yeah, so that I've never taken anyone off their cycle. I just add in massive amounts of HCG HMG. The female takes Clomid on certain days, and like it usually works within the first couple of months. And I don't, dude, this is not a shot at Dave Palumbo, but I get a lot of people that go to Dave for fertility advice, and he takes them off the testosterone. He takes them off everything, and he does a lower dose of HMG and a lower dose of HCG. And he hates Clomid. He thinks everyone's going to have twins and stuff. And he was trying to scare me with that. Not one of my clients has ever had twins, and
it only raises the percent by like 7 or something.
I always incorporate the Clomid in it, and it always really works. I've had so many of his clients come to me that have been on his protocol for 6 months, a year with no success because he takes them off everything. And I'm like, no, get back on TRT immediately and start this up. And they have success within the first 1 to 3 months.
Bostin, I want to ask you a question. I'm going to represent the general population when I ask you this of steroid users. What do you think about staying on a TRT and trying to have a child? Is it a concern, the quality of sperm to actually have a healthy child? And does it increase the chance of you having a child with disabilities if your sperm is weak due to the fact that you're getting testosterone from an outside source and not producing your own?
Zero concern at all. It has a healthy sperm is a healthy sperm. It would not affect it at all.
Because the fact you're shut down and you're getting your test from an outside source.
No, you're not. That's what I'm saying. When you're not, because when you're using the HMG and HCG, that's bringing your natural up. You're not having kids because you're on testosterone. You're having kids because you're taking HMG. The only thing that testosterone is doing is not crashing your system. That's why I think people don't have success.
Two things that Boston's right about academically. Number one, I really believe you're right about crashing the system. The best thing somebody would do is like go to TRT, not go off.
I agree.
And the second thing is the test can actually get into your balls from injecting it also. So there's another way. The Sertoli cells can sense the testosterone systemically. So there's 2 mechanisms by which I really believe you're right. And also I wanted about taking tests affecting. So if you can get a woman pregnant, there's a really tight regulated mechanism by which like your sperm are healthy. What may change is either if you affect the genetics of your sperm, which you cannot do through testosterone. You can do some drugs. No, you can't do it there, but you could do it with some other drugs. Like we were just talking about a guy, the first question, that guy was on these drugs because of his aggression. Valproate will change the genetics of your sperm, the drug he was taking. But testosterone doesn't do this. What testosterone will do is change your epigenetics, meaning how you express your genetics. And this can go to your children. What will probably happen, my assumption, is your child will be more androgenic. Your child will have the expression of having high levels of testosterone. Because you had high testosterone. Your body doesn't know if it's natural or not. It just knows you have a lot of testosterone. So
wouldn't this affect the actual quality and strength of the sperm cell?
No, I don't. No, not definitely. I really don't think so. I've researched this a lot, like a lot of.
It's very popular. A lot of guys talk about this.
Mike, I've had so many people for the last 3 years hire me for fertility. It's probably one of my best selling protocols because I had a kid on all the gear and stuff. And I've never had issues with these kids coming out. I mean, there's no way.
And your kid is healthy.
My kid hasn't been sick once.
Well, not only that, Mike, let me tell you, actually, there's a good question you ask. I went off gear partially because of this. So I was off gear for 3 years and I got my wife pregnant. She's going to deliver in a couple of months, 3 months now.
Congratulations.
So I did it for that reason. And after I did it, I realized probably that was part of the reason. And I realized afterwards, probably it wasn't necessary at all. It probably didn't. It was good for my health, but it wasn't that necessary.
I do that all the time. I hear guys saying, I came off the cycle because I want to make sure I have a...
let me tell you that.
With fucking 3 eyes, right?
The worst problem is this. This is what I was realizing later. If you go off cycle to have a kid, you won't just be a natural guy having a kid. You'll be a guy who took steroids, then went off steroids and had a kid. So you'll be a guy that you're used to having a lot of testosterone, you have less. So you might produce a kid that has less masculinity. That's what I'm concerned about. So I was actually thinking about it myself.
A lot of different variables.
And also I wanted to mention, by the way, I have a protocol for women that's beyond Clomid, like using Metformin. I might make a video on it one day, using Metformin, and luteinizing hormone, some other follicle stimulating hormone. Okay, so Pitch Attent Brent says, he has a bunch of questions. So he says, has Bostin ever boofed his gear? What is boofing? I wanted to ask you.
I've never heard of that.
Do you know what that is, Mike?
I would assume boofing means like underdosing and putting more fillers in it or whatever.
No, I think it's something to do with putting things up the rectum, but I'm not sure. So we're gonna skip this question then. I think it might be that. So we're gonna skip
that?
He says, I've heard.
That probably is putting it up the ass. No, but I've been tempted to. Oh shit, Leo, I forgot to tell you. What? I got the fucking Molly, and we're gonna put it up our asses and fuck on it.
Oh, this is what you got to do. Well, I don't know about putting up your own, but she's gonna really enjoy it. You should really.
Why? Will I not get the effects?
No, you'll get the effects, but
then I'll do it.
Might be a little gay. It might be. But it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Hey, you have to update me. Don't just disappear. For last week, you disappeared. I didn't hear from you.
What do you mean?
Yeah, this week, update me. Usually, you text me during the week. Last week, you didn't. Tell me about this experience. I want to know.
Cool drugs.
I'm gonna live vicariously through you. Okay, so he also asked one thing. He said, "Would using cerebrolysin 1 day a week help with CNS, central nervous system fatigue from bodybuilding, or for mental stress and anxiety induced by bodybuilding pharmaceuticals?" I absolutely think so. I really believe. It's called cerebrolysin. It's purified growth factors for the brain from pig. But it's not growth hormone. It's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, glial cell-derived neurotrophic factor, nerve growth factor, all these kind of things. Started using this. They're used usually for when people get traumatic brain injuries or they get strokes. They give this to them in the hospital for a few days to help the mind recover. I used it for various reasons, but I really believe it's underutilized. If I was a powerlifter now, or if I had clients that are powerlifters or serious competitors, I would be using it like once a week. In fact,
the benefits are more long-term, or do you take it and you kind of feel more of like just like a relaxed feeling after taking it? Like you don't feel like any effects right away. It's more of a longer-term thing.
Have you ever tried ibogaine or heard of it?
No.
Okay. So it's an incredible thing. If you inject like 5 cc's of cerebrolysin, you'll sleep very deeply. The next morning, you'll wake up with zero anxiety. You'll be a little bit of, it's life-changing, bro. It's life-changing. It's like taking an antidepressant in 1 day. Like if you take it 3 days in a row, it's like you were 6 months on an antidepressant, because what antidepressants do is they raise the growth factors in the brain. That's actually what they do. So if you just inject them, you get a similar effect, I discovered. But really, the thing I'm thinking about is this, like your nerves, when you're pushing your nerves and powerlifting and stuff like that, I really believe either like once a month, you do 3 days in a row, or 1 day a week, something like that. It could be really useful. Okay, so Marco says, I want to know, Mike, what do you think about this? He says, Marco says, what gear should a person never touch? I wonder if Bostin will say.
I'd say first of all, that would depend on their blood work. If you have, naturally higher liver enzymes like me, probably a better idea to stay away from that long-term heavy oral use.
How high are yours? You mentioned that before. How high are your enzymes?
My liver enzymes?
Yeah,
naturally. I don't remember the numbers, but I remember before I ever started gear, I went in for blood work to know what I was getting into, because I didn't want to not know. And then I did a cycle and did blood work, and my, doctor would be like, "Oh my God, Mike, you have this problem and that problem." So I wanted to be aware and know what I was getting into. That's why I always tell my clients, guys, make sure you know what your blood is prior to doing a cycle, so you don't freak the fuck out if you see like me, my liver enzymes higher, because they've always been high. I'm not sure exactly what they're at. My LT's always been significantly higher, but I think Tudka helped lower it, to be honest.
Yeah, Tudka is awesome. So I just want to mention, if your liver enzymes, like if ALT and AST are, if your liver enzymes ALT and AST are around 20, you probably don't have anything to be worried about. If they're around 40 or 50, you may just be a weightlifter. If you're a weightlifter, you're burning protein and all that, you're good. ALT is going to be high. Now, if your ALT and AST is 40 or 50 and you're not a weightlifter, you probably have fatty liver disease. You should go do an ultrasound of your liver, find out if it's fatty, and you might have to deal with that. Or you could be a drinker, and you're actually harming your liver.
I feel like it's so common, though, Leo, for weightlifters and bodybuilders to have a little bit of a fatty liver due to the fact of our diets and our lifestyle.
Yes. I've been saying this for a year and a half on YouTube. We
talked about that the other day, Mike.
Yeah.
This is one of the first things I've ever talked about on YouTube. Is I think that a lot of the gut in bodybuilding, like you remember when your belly stuck out on your Instagram when you were taking insulin, when you were with Milos, I saw a post you made of your belly. That's, I feel, is when part of that I feel is a fatty liver. And when you get a fatty liver in combination, you usually start to hold water around your organs also. It's hard not to have a fatty liver if you're eating all day. You're never fasting.
And that crazy amounts of protein for, long periods of time, right?
And insulin. And the insulin has a huge role in it.
But I got mine checked, and my doctor said I have a little bit of a fatty liver. He's like, it's not abnormal, but it's not great. But he's like, you're fine. Just keep an eye on it, kind of thing.
Almost everybody has one now in the US.
Yeah.
It's like 40% of the population, of the adult population. It's very common.
Yeah.
In Boston, you have any gear that you think is worthless?
Oh, worthless?
Yeah, no, somebody should not touch, whether it's harmful or worthless.
I don't know, man. I'm willing to try everything. I mean, I've tried pretty much everything. I don't know, man. I don't like to say that. I think all drugs have a purpose.
Halo testing, you both think is useful?
Oh yeah.
Before competition only, huh? You do it?
I mean, I don't know about the word love, but it definitely has a place. It definitely has
That's a drug that I would put up the ass.
Why?
Because I think it would hit like immediately. Like I have liquid Halo that you shake up. I would like in oral form.
But you know Scott snorts it, right?
Oh yeah, see that would work too.
There's lines of Halo, yeah.
Yes, that would work. I would do that, yeah.
That's like an aggression right after you sniff that. It's just you feel like you're fucking turning into Hercules right away.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, we'll do a couple more. So these are some nootropics ones. Okay, this is a cool one. The juicy one says, does heavy bulking with accelerated weight gain have its place in bodybuilding, meaning gaining excess fat? There's an interesting question, boss. I don't know if you know that Fuad and Greg had like a major argument on YouTube.
Yes.
For like, do you know about this? So
I actually agree with Greg Doucette on that one.
Do you really?
Yeah, I don't think you need to put on all this weight and fat to put on muscle. I don't.
I agree.
Yeah. I think it depends on your genetics. I really do. I mean, dude, like you're not going to put on more muscle if you're just, putting on weight. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense.
Actually, it can be counteractive because you're not getting as good blood distribution.
I completely agree. And especially with females, I notice when females get fatter, their muscles seem to get smaller. It's weird.
And drugs work way worse if you're fat.
But everything, right? And then you also look at the organ aspect. Like, it's just not benefiting you on it. And plus, imagine being fat as shit in the off season, and then you're trying to get in really good shape. How are you going to catch somebody who's already in, functioning good shape, who doesn't need to, bring the calories all the way down and do crazy amounts of cardio?
That's what the argument was. Greg Doucette says you don't need much calories over your, needs to gain muscle, and Fuad's like, no, you need thousands of more calories than your Yeah, that's bullshit.
So I have a theory, which is a weird theory. So my thought is this: they're both in a way right. My theory is this: the reason why I think there's a discrepancy is you need to eat above your natural maintenance. You need a surplus of calories and insulin and growth factors. You want your body to want to grow. Then you want to go do cardio and burn those calories. So you want the signal, but you don't want to gain the fat. That's why I believe, because I asked Chad Nichols. I was really always curious why Chad Nichols has Ronnie Coleman, all these guys doing cardio. I'm like, dude, why don't you just lower the calories? And there's no cardio, no need for cardio. The reason is you need the growth signal from the calories. You need that intense surplus and then go burn it so you don't get fat. Because if you get fat, you ruin your whole growth. You don't want to be fat.
Yeah, and once your stomach gets to that point, right, it's hard to kind of revert that and bring it into some miracle hourglass,
Also, that's another point. You destroy your dimensions for your sport, right? Yeah. But even in like in arm wrestling or powerlifting, I don't think being fat is actually good. I mean, it gives you more mass so you could lift heavier weights, but it screws up everything else.
I feel like it's kind of part of the sport to be a little fatter when you're in strongman. I mean, they use their gut as leverage when they're
in strongman.
They hold it, right? And then before they get that final push.
That's actually true. And in bench press also, like, you need a gut.
Yeah.
To be able to
it's fun. That's like one of the few, though.
Scott always tells me that. And Scott always argues with me, telling me he doesn't have a belly. He has like a gut for bench press. It's not like a real belly. He argues.
Yeah, the purpose.
All right. So Bendecido Amigo says, how do you get rid of scar tissue? What do you guys do?
I don't do anything for it.
Hard, man. It's hard. They have a lot of different approaches. People say that if you do, when you go to do deep tissue and they have that that pulsing machine that helps. I forget what it's called, like the handheld
Break
thing.
it up.
Yeah, to break it up. But I think they're all just theories. I still have the exact same scar tissue in the places that I had it before, even, before and after these treatments. I think it's bullshit. It's hard.
After a lot of time, it softens up, but I don't think you're going to get rid of it.
Yeah. I actually looked
The longer you have it, the worse too, right? The harder it is to break down. So if you've had it for years, like scar tissue on my shoulders from injecting over and over.
Those are the worst. The scar tissue in the shoulders, I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
Thank God I never injected much in my shoulders. I couldn't before. I used to be really wide and it would be hard. How do you guys inject in your shoulder?
The only thing is you kind of like it's hard. See, so what I do is I use my leg. I use my leg to pull, and then I have more leverage.
Oh yeah.
Right. You got to be a little bit creative, but it's hard because I can't really inject any other areas by myself. So if you have help, you could do rear delts, lats, all that shit. But like when you're all alone.
Let me ask you, since you bring it up, one question I didn't write down. We got 2 questions about injecting lats. People want to know how the hell they inject. I've never injected my lats.
I love injecting lats.
How do you guys do it?
Yeah.
I do it myself.
Yeah.
You just go around and randomly is it all like non-nerve? There's no nerve endings there?
Right there.
See, I don't do it like Bostin does. For me, I'll sit down like I do now. I use my knee to pull in my arm, which brings the lat closer, and then you have more area. Like it's easier to get underneath.
But you know what it is? So my lats are weak from the front, right? So I like to reach up like I'm doing a lat pull down, and you get the full lat. I like to shoot, right in here. And if I want to shoot trend, and I want to make sure I get no trend cough. Yeah, if I want to make sure that I get no trend cough, my lats are the best place.
Dude, 10 out of 10, if I shoot trend in my lats, I'm coughing my ass off.
Really? I get no cough.
It's the further away from my lungs, like my glutes, my shoulders, my arms. If I do like chest or lats, forget about it.
That's crazy, because I notice when I shoot into scar tissue, I always get the cough usually, and my glutes have a lot more scar tissue.
So you could shoot in your lats and you're okay. You're not like dying.
No, I never get the cough in my lats usually.
Total opposite.
I shot trend suspension the other day in my lats.
Oh, really?
How about this? I've never had a trend cough ever, and I used trend for 6 months straight every day.
Some people never get it.
Never, and I've never.
I would kind of question the potency of the trend. Maybe
I was in Dubai for part of the time, so this was trend from Iran. Like,
okay, so never.
I'm talking about trend that made you urinate brown the next day, like the bad trend.
Hey, Mike, if you want to get trend cough again, just use parabolin, like real parabolin. You will not get the cough.
It's funny. So funny you said that. The last time I used trend, it was parabolin, and I don't remember coughing. But I also stayed away from my lats. I wasn't risking that shit.
Yeah, no,
I cough so much. Like my eyes are red, and I'm like, it's horrible.
If it's real parabolin trend hex, you will not get the cough, because that's trend in its original form, and it's not all fucked up. Yeah, dude, you're not going to get the cough.
You couldn't pay me to shoot it in my lats, though, and roll the dice.
Really?
Yeah. Dude, when it happens, it's fucking crazy. My ex saw me, like my ex was here one time, and she shot my lats with trend. I coughed so hard, and she started crying because she thought like I was going to fucking die. But,
she probably asked you after, what are you doing to yourself? Why are you doing this?
I know.
Yeah, the worst thing when you're
water, man. I feel like a great thing to do is just have a cup 500 mils of water ready beside, and I just don't talk after I shoot trend. I drink water and I feel it kind of neutralize, and then I'm okay.
You know what scared me is when you told that story of how you overheated when you got that injection and you went outside the house. That stuff happened to me a lot of times in my life. Like I used to.
Was it anaphylactic? Because so for me, they figured out it was anaphylactic shock. Is that what? Like, did you feel? Yeah, I feel like if you didn't faint, that it might just be normal, because it could just be, an irritation or.
No, I'm not talking about like exactly that, but you know how when you happen to be taking foreign substances, sometimes weird stuff happens to you. Like you get nauseous, crazy nauseous. You just wake up nauseous, and or you start overheating, just start sweating somewhere.
It's funny. It's different if I shoot in the morning or if I shoot at night, because I have more liquid and I'm more hydrated. It affects me differently. When I shoot in the morning, I feel like a lot more vulnerable and weak. If that makes any sense, I feel more emotionally vulnerable, especially with trend. If I shoot later on, like after training, I feel like fucking the Hulk. It affects me totally differently.
No, I mean, this happens to me randomly, not just when I inject. Randomly, I'd get nausea or start
really?
And I wouldn't know why. Yeah, especially nausea. So for a long time, I thought I might have kidney issues, but it turned out I didn't seem to. But I thought something was going on.
You drink enough water?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was often I was taking Anadrol or I was taking Melanotan with Anadrol or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a horrible combination.
Yeah, there were reasons. Obviously. All right, last question from Randy 2.0. He says, which does Bostin prefer, Anadrol or Dianabol? And when using either of them, does Bostin recommend Mastron to reduce estrogen conversion or Nolvadex?
That's such a good question. So I always prefer oral Anadrol over oral D-bol, but I prefer injectable D-bol over injectable Anadrol.
Okay, what? Injectable Anadrol is hell.
Just because of results-wise, and D-bol completely makes me lethargic, and it completely destroys my appetite even worse than Anadrol. But the injectable version, I get amazing results on. And you know what? Many people say the same thing. They love injectable D-bol, but they can't do the oral.
Fascinating. What about you, Mike?
I would say I like Anadrol better. I find with D-bol, I get gyno off like 40 milligrams. So it's a no-go for me. I could do usually up to 100 or 75 milligrams of Anadrol without it affecting my appetite. And I've never actually done the injectable for either of those, so I can't comment in regards to that. I've always just done the old school orals. But I am a fan of doing like a Proviron every day or doing Mastron, even in the off season to help with that whole, any of the side effects in regards to gyno and shit like that.
I don't know how it, like the look, like taking Mastron for the look, because I was always focused on strength. But I personally, before I did my surgery, if I used to take Anadrol, I had to take Nolvadex because Anadrol had some like potent gyno-inducing crap that was different. Like the Anabol would make me estrogenic. I'd get bloated and look like a woman or something. Like
the opposite of you, yeah.
But the Anadrol, the progesterone part, it can make your nipples start milking.
Oh yeah, dude! Like Anadrol jacks your progesterone through the roof.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, but I'm gonna make a video reviewing my recent experience with injectable Anadrol, which is a really funny story.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna talk about it.
You guys find and it's interesting you brought this up because I've actually never tried it. Do you find the injectable, like heavy orals, like the Dianabol and the Anadrol, affect your appetite the same and the acid digestion kind of?
That's why I take the injectable version because it doesn't affect that.
Really?
That's why people do that. Yeah.
Interesting.
I found that the injectable Anadrol affected my appetite.
Okay.
I think because maybe inject your maybe raise your liver enzymes. But for most people, for instance,
not as much as oral though.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so there we go. Most of my clients can tolerate like 25 mgs of oral Anadrol. If I go to 50, they usually lose their appetite. Most of my clients could easily tolerate 50 mgs of inject Anadrol every other day and still keep an appetite.
So how often are you injecting these? Do you have to do
50 every other day or of each? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like injectable D-ball, you do 50 every other day, or if you like, you could do 25 daily.
Yeah, it's a weird. I'm not like very pro the injectable. I'm gonna reserve my opinion until I make the video. But basically, like this is the way I think of it. So orals can be really useful because you don't want as a powerlifter. Maybe it's a little bit different than bodybuilders, but I think it would apply to bodybuilders too. So when you go to the gym, as strong you are in the gym affects how much muscle you build. So you want to have high androgenic signaling when you're weightlifting. You want to be strong. Like you want to have test suspension. Like what I used to do is like test suspension or Anadrol before I work out. But then at night, I don't need very high androgen signaling like tren or something while I'm sleeping because I'm not, I don't need to be that strong then. So what my idea is with orals, they're useful because they can let you have a base level of androgens that's lower. And then around your workout, you can peak them. So you can get stronger. You know what I mean? But with an injectable, then there's no purpose of that.
I wish you would have asked, because I have my clients do this and it helps with their appetite. I wish you would ask Chad Nichols why he has all of his clients take Anadrol right before bed.
I could text him. He text me something.
Really? He does that?
Yeah. So Mike, that's one thing I learned from Anadrol, from Chad Nichols is all of his programs. It's always Anadrol before bed, Anadrol before bed. And I actually did ask him through text, but I wanted you to ask him on a webcast and see if his answer was the same.
So not prior to training?
It's an oral with a longer half-life. And it also, any orals, it's like Anadrol, affects your digestion. So he wants to have it after your last meal of the day, after you've eaten all your food. So you have that fast so it doesn't affect your digestion for the day.
Oh, true.
I should mention injectable Anadrol obviously could be very useful for bodybuilders because you retain so much when you have Anadrol in you. So like before a contest, it could be really useful because
I love Anadrol. Pre-contest, I run Anadrol the whole prep.
Yeah,
I run it my last 8 weeks because it's one of the only things that help keep me full. That and the suspension.
Yeah.
But so hold on, if Chad's got his guys doing it before bed, his clients are only doing 50 milligrams a day?
No, even when he goes higher, he does that. I mean, but hold on.
So it's only before bed.
I've only seen Chad's programs that have 50 to 100 a day. I've never seen him do more than 100, but yes, he plans it right before bed.
Okay, cool.
But
wouldn't split up to 50 and 50 then, eh? He would just do every.
But with D-ball, he has his clients take a pre-workout.
Interesting.
I've always done Anadrol before training.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the training effect is just incredible. Let's do one more question before we end. It's a funny question. So Johnny Rico says, Leo, you mentioned you had a 21-inch neck when lifting. Can you provide your routine or advice for building a strong, thick neck? I'd appreciate that. Trying to train my neck to get larger fast. Bro, Johnny Rico, do not grow your neck, bro. You're going to screw up you're going to have sleep apnea. You're going to have heart problems because of sleep apnea, which by the way, that's another thing we didn't mention. Sleep apnea often causes heart problems, huh?
Sure, of course.
Sleep apnea too? I used to.
Struggling, right? And usually it's affiliated with being heavy. The lighter I am, the easier I breathe. I honestly, when I'm like ever 220 or 230, I don't even really need my CPAP. When I hit like 270, 280, 290, I can't even, I need it. It's mad. Or else like I'll wake up in the middle of the night like gasping for breath.
Bro, that has a huge impact on heart failure.
For sure.
Huge sleep apnea. That's called the silent killer for the heart. I had horrible sleep apnea. See, look, even now, if I go back, my neck is still wide. Don't ever do that. I mean, if you want to do it, go to ironmind.com. There's a neck harness.
I do the neck harness every shoulder day.
No, you should never do it. But if you want to do it, what you do is you can lean off this like side of your bed or something.
And you
can lift weights from, if you do it just standing up, you're going to put a lot of pressure on your, down on your spine. If you do it from the side, that's the fastest way to grow it. But I used to do hundreds of pounds eventually at the end, and it's a horror. It'll never go back.
I feel like you build a lot of it up though, even when you're just training traps, because that same motion and strain, right? Like you're getting it.
Once you do it from the top and you lean from the side, you'll get this side neck come up.
Isolate it better. Sure.
It'll start to go beyond your face. It looks very ugly. Like women used to comment it when they look at me, they'd be like, your neck is wider than your face. It's gross. People don't like it. It's not a good thing. Don't do it.
Well, Leo, so I always do it right in the, what I do is I sit on a bench, I hang weights down and I go like this. You're saying I could use my harness and go sideways?
That's, if you want it to look big, it goes from the side. That thing you're doing, nobody can see that crap.
That's at the back of the neck.
I have the one where it's
forward.
a chain. But I have the one that's a chain and you attach weights to it.
Yeah, that's what you want. Okay. You can get one from Iron Mind. That's a great one. But this is what you want to do. You can go from the side and then you can go from the back forward, not back up.
Are you laying off a bench?
Yeah, off a bed. I used to do it in my room. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'll bring it in my room.
I did it from when I was 16 years old. I started. Yeah. I was 16 the first time I did that crap. It's so stupid. Eventually, it starts going so wide. You can't breathe. You're sleeping, snoring. You're gasping for breath. People think you're dying when you're sleeping. It's not good. The good thing is nobody can strangle you. It gets hard to strangle you if you have a very big neck. But anyway, Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show. You really made our evening.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
We should have you on again. It was such a pleasure to talk to you, man. You're a breath of fresh air. You're so honest.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, boss. I'll speak to you soon. I want to hear about the MDMA story.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
All right, brother. See you soon.